The first time Thomas Callahan saw her, she was standing barefoot in the tall summer grass behind her father's house, chasing a yellow butterfly that refused to land. The afternoon sun glowed warm over the valley, turning the wheat fields gold and the sky pale blue. Thomas was 15 then, lanky and quiet, a boy who had grown used to hard work and long silences. Her name was Emily Harper, and she was only 8 years old. She laughed when the butterfly slipped away from her fingers again. It was the kind of laughter that made people turn their heads without realizing it. Bright, pure, unafraid of the world, Thomas had been helping her father repair a broken fence along the road. Mr. Harper was a kind man who paid fairly and spoke gently, something Thomas respected more than he ever said aloud. When the girl came running toward them, her hair flying behind her like a banner in the wind, Mr. Harper smiled. "Emily," he called, "slow down before you trip yourself into the dirt." She stopped near the fence, breathing hard, cheeks flushed pink. "Papa, I almost caught it." Thomas leaned against the fence post, watching her with mild amusement. "Almost don't count," he said. Emily looked up at him, studying his face with the blunt curiosity only children possess. "You're tall," she said. Thomas blinked. "Well, I suppose I am. And you don't smile much." Mr. Harper chuckled. "She's honest to a fault." Thomas rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. "I smile sometimes." Emily crossed her arms thoughtfully. "I'll believe it when I see it." For the first time that day, Thomas laughed. It surprised even him. From that afternoon on, Thomas found himself stopping by the Harper farm more often, sometimes to help with chores, sometimes to borrow tools, sometimes for reasons he didn't fully understand. Emily always seemed to appear when he did. She followed him around like a curious shadow, asking questions about everything. Why do horses sleep standing up? How far does the river go? Have you ever seen the ocean? Thomas answered as best he could, though half the time he was guessing. Years passed slowly, like seasons drifting across the valley. Thomas grew into a man with broad shoulders and steady hands. He bought a small piece of land nearby and began building a life for himself. It wasn't much at first, just a rough cabin and a few acres of stubborn soil, but he worked harder than anyone else in the valley. Emily grew too. At first Thomas barely noticed the change. She was simply Emily, the girl who chased butterflies and talked too much. But time has a quiet way of reshaping people. By the time she turned 16, she had grown tall and graceful. Her laughter was softer now, but still carried the same warmth that made people feel at ease. One evening, she came riding down the dirt road toward Thomas's land. He was repairing the barn roof when he saw her approach. She swung down from the saddle easily. "You're going to fall off that roof one day," she called up. Thomas glanced down at her. "Then I'll expect you to patch me up." She smiled. "I might let you suffer a little first." Thomas climbed down and wiped sweat from his forehead. "You ride all the way out here just to insult me." Emily leaned against the fence rail. Maybe. There was a playful spark in her eyes. Thomas noticed it, but didn't comment. They talked for a while about small things, weather, crops, the town festival coming soon. When she finally mounted her horse again, she hesitated. "You're different than most men around here," she said. Thomas frowned slightly. "Different how? You listen," she said simply. Then she rode away before he could answer. That night Thomas sat on his porch long after the sun disappeared behind the hills. Something about the way she had said those words lingered in his thoughts. Years continued to pass. The valley changed slowly. New farms appeared. Old ones faded. Children grew up and left. Emily turned 19. By then, she had become one of the most admired young women in the county. Men noticed when she entered a room. Some tried to impress her with fancy talk or flashy horses. She was polite to them all, but none of them made her laugh the way Thomas did. One summer afternoon, Thomas rode into town for supplies. The streets buzzed with activity. Wagons rolled past the general store, children ran along the wooden sidewalks, and music drifted from the saloon doors. As he tied his horse outside the store, he heard a familiar voice behind him. "You still don't smile much." Thomas turned. Emily stood there in a pale blue dress that caught the sunlight. Her hair was pinned back loosely, a few strands escaping in the warm breeze. For a moment he simply stared. She laughed softly. "That bad, huh?" "No," he said quickly, "just unexpected." They walked through town together, talking as easily as they had when she was younger. But something had changed. Thomas felt it in the way people looked at them, in the way Emily's hand brushed his arm as they walked, in the quiet awareness that she was no longer a child. That night there was a dance at the town hall. Thomas rarely attended such things, but Emily insisted. "You can't hide on that farm forever," she told him. The hall was full of lantern light and music. Couples spun across the wooden floor while laughter filled the room. Emily found Thomas standing near the wall. "You're supposed to dance." "I'm terrible at it. I'll teach you." Before he could protest, she pulled him onto the floor. At first he stumbled awkwardly. Emily guided him patiently, her hands warm in his. "Relax," she said. He tried. Soon the music carried them along with the others. For a brief moment Thomas forgot about everything else. All he noticed was the sound of her laughter and the warmth of her hand in his. When the dance ended, they stepped outside for air. The night sky stretched wide above the valley, filled with stars. Emily leaned against the wooden railing. "You've known me a long time," she said quietly. Thomas nodded. "Since you were chasing butterflies." She smiled. "You remember that? Hard to forget." A silence settled between them, not uncomfortable, just thoughtful. Finally Emily spoke again. "You've always looked after me." Thomas shifted slightly. "Your father would have my hide if I didn't." She shook her head. "It's more than that." Thomas didn't answer. He was afraid of where the conversation might lead. Another year passed. Emily turned 20. By then, Thomas could no longer pretend he didn't see her differently. But he kept those feelings locked away. To him, she would always be the little girl who chased butterflies in the tall grass. One autumn afternoon, she rode to his farm again. Thomas was splitting firewood when she arrived. "You work too hard," she said. He set the axe aside. "Someone's got to." She watched him for a moment. "Why haven't you ever married?" Thomas shrugged. "Never found the right woman." Emily tilted her head. "Maybe you weren't looking in the right place." He laughed softly. "Maybe." She stepped closer. "Thomas." He met her eyes. They were serious now. "You still see me as that little girl, don't you?" He hesitated. "Yes." Her expression softened. "I'm not anymore." Thomas felt his chest tighten. "I know." "Then why do you keep pretending?" He didn't have an answer. Weeks passed before he saw her again. During that time, Thomas thought constantly about what she had said. One evening he rode to the Harper farm. Mr. Harper greeted him warmly. "Been a while since you visited." Thomas nodded. "I was hoping to speak with Emily. She's out by the orchard." Thomas walked slowly toward the trees. Emily stood beneath them, watching the sunset paint the sky orange. When she turned and saw him, surprise flickered across her face. "You came?" He took a deep breath. "I did." They stood quietly for a moment. Finally Thomas spoke. "I've known you almost your whole life." Emily nodded. "You watched me grow up." "Yes." "And you cared for me even when I was just a child." Thomas looked at the ground. "I always will." She stepped closer. "Then say what you came to say." He raised his eyes to meet hers. The evening light glowed softly around her. "Emily, I loved you as a child." Her breath caught slightly. "And now I love you as a man." For a moment the world seemed to stop. The wind moved gently through the orchard leaves. Emily's eyes filled with emotion. "You took long enough to realize it." Thomas let out a nervous laugh. "I was afraid of me, of losing you." She reached for his hand. "You won't." He swallowed hard. "Emily Harper, will you marry me?" A tear slipped down her cheek, but she was smiling. "Yes," she whispered. Thomas finally smiled the way she had always wanted him to. And somewhere in the tall summer grass of memory, a yellow butterfly drifted quietly through the warm valley air, as if it had been waiting all along for that moment to arrive.